Hello, we are talking today about guilt. First question I have for you. Do you have worries? What do you worry about? So think for a moment. What are some of your key worries that keep you up at night? Or even maybe dulled worries that are chronic, subtle? Take a moment to jot some of these down. So if you need more time to jot some worries down, just pause here and then come back. Otherwise, keep your notes there and let's move on. So I'm talking about guilt today. Sometimes the words we use hinder us from seeing more deeply into the meaning. So I invite you to be curious and open and allow yourself to dig deep throughout this session. So most of us think of guilt as a wrongdoing, committing a crime, obviously hurting someone, stealing, cheating, lying, breaking a cardinal rule. Maybe it's a religious or cultural norm that creates feelings like Catholic or Jewish guilt, or a societal, again, norm where you live or with the people you hang out with. That wrongdoing creates judgment on the wrongdoer, whether that's you or someone else, by you and others, judgment, and requires punishment, repentance, perhaps stirs up feelings of vengeance, and hopefully forgiveness. There's another, more elevated view of guilt, which reminds you of what is true for you, what is in alignment with you, what is your responsibility, a recognition of cause and effect, and again, forgiveness. Something happens, we get this tingly feeling, or however it might feel for you, that tells us that we feel off about something that happened or might happen. Our inner compass is unstable. So if you can imagine this compass with the needle trying to point north, but it's kind of doing a little wavering thing. Maybe it's wavering a lot. Maybe it's just wavering a little bit. But if you can create that visual in your mind of your inner compass, it's unstable when you feel off. So now in this view of guilt, we can acknowledge that there are different truths that exist based on our own evolution of experience. It can be difficult to see anything beyond your own programmed view of truth at a given moment, but with examination and guidance and an open curiosity, we can see that our truth may not be the only truth. We will talk more about these three truths, there are three, in a moment, but know that this shifted view of guilt as our guide, ultimately wants us to land on truth that stays true universally, no matter where you grew up, with what culture, religion, family, or what kind of environment, socially, economically, or politically, you are currently in. This would be universal truth, just one of the three truths. So now, let's get back to our worries. Take a moment to consider one of the worries that you jotted down. I'll use a personal example for this video on how I would examine my worry and how guilt acts as my guide. I worry about the impact of screen time on my children. That's my example. So I would ask myself, what exactly am I worried about? Well, I'm worried that they'll get addicted. It'll take them away from their passions, their ability to learn, create, and grow into meaningful lives that'll sustain them for the rest of their lives. Well, why do you worry about this? See, because I've seen and heard in a lot of parenting journals and articles, etc., on the dangers of too much screen time. On top of that, I personally feel the impact myself that screen hijacking takes on me when it consumes more than I feel is acceptable. My mind gets numb or zingy, and critical thinking or creativity or action after that feels really hard. I've also had a belief in my life that in the balance of my days, there should be way more creation than consumption. Lastly, simply the impact of whatever waves and lights are coming from the screens, I've also read are not healthy for our well-being. So, continuing my curious journey on my worry, I'd ask myself, well, I have a lot of information about reasons to limit screen time, but have I implemented healthy limits? Well, if I'm truly honest, I always think I have, but I don't clearly know what is healthy limits. And I know that no screen time is not realistic. So, it sounds like this bothers me enough. It keeps me either up at night or just feels like a chronic issue. So, what are you doing to resolve the situation? I ask myself. Well, I'm mostly being inconsistent with any implementation and repercussions around breaking limitations around screen time. And I'm noticing that its impact on me, not regularly, but when I do let it hijack my day, I really notice that draggy feeling and that unclear feeling. So now at this point, I can go and would recommend going deeper with why and how I let this screen time example hijack me at times. But for now, for this video, I'll ask myself, is this why I worry? Yes. Both because of not having solid limitations around screen time, but also because as a parent, I know how important consistency is, and I just haven't been consistent or clear about this. So then, as a parent, do you think it is your responsibility to resolve? Yeah, I do. And to mirror, lead by example? Yes, definitely I do. So, ultimately then, do you feel a sense of guilt around this because you feel it is your responsibility? Yes. Okay. So here we get to the heart of your worry. There's guilt. Guilt tells us that there's something we feel responsible for. Our inner compass recognizes that because of X, you're not doing your job as a parent, Y might happen. The worry about damage to my kids' futures. By the way, this is where we refrain from any judgment or self-judgment. We examine with open curiosity and honesty with ourselves. Now, let's take a look at our truths. 3 levels of truth. The first, which is the ultimate gift which guilt wants us to get to, is universal truth. I mentioned that already. The other 2 truths are personal truth and circumstantial truth. And these show up in equal measure in our lives, specific to the situation. Side note here, emotions work in real time in our lives as situations come up. And they are right even when they're wrong, based on our own evolution of experiences and what we are ready to see and accept at any given moment. So ultimately, being able to see and accept universal truth gives us another option, an elevated option, an option that holds true always. So back to my example, personal truth. What is my personal truth? Given my experience and research around screen time issues, I feel that I am responsible as a parent to both model healthy screen time habits and create the environment for my kids to adopt healthy screen time limits. I feel like it is my duty to figure this out and deliver healthy to me and my kids. Okay, so my personal truth sounds reasonable, except I'm not doing it, at least not effectively. So, are you not doing it effectively? Well, my inner compass does feel off around it, so I must not be. So what might be a circumstantial truth in this example? Circumstantial truth has to do with my environment, my group, my tribe, my culture. Personally, I actually have 2 group truths that I'm working from for screen time issues. One is our culture of screen usage. I think everyone is aware of that. And to that point, I had said earlier that it's not realistic to not have any screen time because our culture demands it. Again, I think everyone can relate to that. My second group truth is the school that I chose for my kids that frowns upon any early usage of screens, and certainly any excessive use as the kids get older. So I chose that school partly because I agreed with this, and I wanted support on it in my community. So this is a kind of conflicted circumstantial truth for me. Or maybe it's a highlight of 2 extremes and I'm surfing in the middle, since my kids and I live not only in the school bubble, but in the culture of screens, 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 and more screens. So, in a sense, I can hold to whichever circumstantial truth fits the moment. So, if we are hanging out with school friends, we hone in on less screen time, and we're supported with each other. When we're elsewhere, I feel a little too neurotic about my ideal screen time rules, so I relax them. So it shows up as inconsistent. Now, let's look at universal truth. I worry about a detriment to my kids' lives, to their health, and to their future. And these detriments may be valid. I worry about addiction. And this again may be valid based on some pretty solid research I've found out there. Ultimately, my kids are having their own experiences in life, no matter what I try to enforce. As a parent, I am not their master, but their steward. As a steward, just like being a good steward to our earth, I exemplify in my own life the way I want our earth to be cared for, the way I want our health to be cared for, how to find and live meaningfully. So the more I lead by example and the more I work on my own self, the better steward I can be for them. The more opportunities to experience the important things in life, say, from an eagle's perspective of the world and of life. The important things. The more of those that I can bring into the life of me and my kids, the more I create higher evolutions of experience and wisdom for my children, so that no matter their current screen usage, they can know and set their inner compass for health around this issue for future reference, and hopefully for now as much as possible. What do you think? What feels like universal truths to you? Whether in my worry example, did all of that resonate? And or in yours, your worry example, what comes up for you? So do this with each of your worries. No big rush, one at a time, especially slower when you start out. You may not be able to see a universal truth right away. You can probably more easily see your own personal truth and circumstantial truth, and it may be more of an honesty issue, not wanting to own up to certain things that maybe make you feel ashamed, or other emotions that may come up as you dig deeper. And you may find it hard to act upon universal truth if you can see it clearly, because of emotional things that may come up. So these are your emotional guides at work. You may then need to follow that specific emotional guide that comes up. Maybe it's shame, maybe it's grief, or whatever it is. You may need to follow that and get to the bottom of that obstacle. It will serve you, I promise. And once that's cleared, a huge fog or weight is lifted, you can come back to guilt, or perhaps it has helped you already quickly see and move through it. And you just keep doing this. So I hope this look at guilt and worry and truths provides an elevating shift for you. Please reach out if you have any questions, comment. If you feel open to it, please share your experience with this. Satnam.